Hello, Saints Squad. Welcome back. I'm your host, Dylan Zender from Saints Wire. And today, Lance is rocking his best fit yet.
I'm Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast, and there's a new Buc-ee's in town.
Hey, man. John Hendricks, New Orleans football. Hey, girl, you going to eat your cornbread?
This is former Saints wide receiver Lance Moore, and go Tigers.
Let's go.
It's the Saints Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything New Orleans Saints, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from down in the Big Easy, the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Saints Squad show, starting now.
Howdy, Hood Nation. Welcome back to the Saints Squad, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making this your first listen every Monday and Thursday. We have a unique group of experts here ready to bring you a fun and informative show on everything New Orleans Saints. Today, we're going to be diving into stuff like a season preview for Justin Reid, a homecoming long in the making, our biggest OTA takeaways. And then the Saints have actually started to be a little bit active on the free agent market. We're going to talk Nick Chubb, even though he just signed with the Texans, what it means that the Saints were even interested. And then, of course, the most exciting news to come out in a while is the Saints are talking to a wide receiver, Gabe Davis. And I think that's where we're going to start today. We're going to talk about what it means that they are contacting receiver. They're finally doing it. They're talking to a big-bodied wide receiver. Now, let's start with Lance. What does the interest mean, and does Gabe Davis interest you as a pickup?
Well, first and foremost, he does interest me as a pickup, but it's at what level, right? Like what are we doing here? Are we interested as in like, hey, let's kick the tires on this guy to see what he's interested in doing or what he could potentially bring to the table for this offense? Or is it like, hey, we got some extra money, let's give it to this guy and pray that he comes in and can be a good player? Now, the Gabe Davis of a few years ago with the Buffalo Bills, that's the guy I want, right? Like the guy that was balling and taking games over, and even in playoff games, like a guy that looked like he was the best receiver on the football field in big time football action. That's the guy I would love to have on this team, a guy that can not just be big bodied and make plays with bodies around him. Usually the DBs are going to be smaller, but a guy that can get down the field as well. I mean, you add another one of those guys to the mix of guys that can it could potentially be bombs away with this offense, either with or without him. But if you add in another big body guy that can make plays, I think that's just going to make the quarterback's job easier. Again, I don't know that he's necessarily been that same player over the last couple of years. Usually when guys go to, I believe it was in Jacksonville, right? Like, usually when guys go to Jacksonville, it doesn't work out the greatest for most guys. But a player that's capable, I do know that. But again, it's got to be the Gabe Davis that we saw a few seasons ago. And we'd be foolish not to be kicking tires on veteran players at multiple positions. And I could say all positions, but the reality is you're usually not going to get a lot of reporting on a lot of that stuff because they try to keep that stuff as close to the vest as possible, right? When this information comes out, a lot of times coaches don't necessarily want to be talking about that stuff. Like, we're taking a look at this guy. Okay, it doesn't mean that we're going to sign every single guy. And obviously the Nick Chubb thing is one of those examples, right? He's a very, very good and accomplished veteran player. Of course, there's going to be interest. Of course, there's going to be teams that want to see if the interest is mutual. But I'm not really going to talk too much about what could be until there's a signing, right? Like once there's a signing, then we do a deeper dive and analysis into the player and what he could totally bring to the table. But for now, I think they're doing exactly what they should be doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think just the idea that they're excited about adding a wide receiver at this stage is exciting. Gabe Davis, they're giving him a workout, and that's a big name. I've watched a lot of Bills football, and Gabe Davis will either look like prime Michael Thomas or somebody morphed Ted Ginn and Kelvin Benjamin. There's kind of no in between. And I think that I do think that this is maybe like a perfect scenario. There are targets for him. The expectations aren't super high. Plus, he could immediately carve out a role for himself in this room because he does something that the other three receivers that they have don't do. Like the other three established receivers that they have don't.
Look, I think it would be a depth move, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not they're not they wouldn't sign Gabe Davis to come in and be their number one receiver, right? Like this, they would sign him to be an additional piece to the puzzle. A guy that could come in. And I would imagine now, I mean, looking at the top three guys, I don't know that those guys are going to be at any of those three guys are going to regularly be at the point of attack in the run game, right? And what about attack, right? Like point of attack means if you're the receiver on the right side and the run is going to the right, you are the receiver that's at the point of attack, meaning you are the force blocking receiver. Who is the force guy? The force guy is the defensive back that is the one that's in charge of getting to the run play quicker. In a single high or a one high safety defense, it's generally going to be one of those safeties. It's the receiver's job to go in there and dig out that safety. In a two high safety defense, it's usually going to be that cornerback because he's obviously up closer to the line of scrimmage. The receiver's got to take that guy. And you don't really want to put your smaller, lighter guys at the point of attack a lot of times. So, being a bigger, more physical receiver, that could absolutely be a role that Gabe Davis could come in and fill. But I do believe that there are some other guys on this roster that could do that as well. So I'm not saying that we don't have a guy at all, but I do think that there is absolutely a role for him. And it might not necessarily be the role that everybody thinks, oh, he's a big guy. Let's throw him the ball in traffic. Let's, jump ball him. It could potentially be a guy that's at the point of attack and then becomes part of the play action passing game and stuff like that. So not to get too X's and O's on it, but I felt like I had to say something about, the run game because it is important. None of us want to do it as wide receivers. I mean, me included, but got to be able to stick your nose in there and block somebody. And it's will more than skill.
Right.
You have to be willing to get a little bit dirty. And it's okay. Like we're not paid to pancake guys. We're paid to literally just get in the way and pester DB so that they can't make the play. But a lot of times coaches don't like putting the smaller guys there at the point of attack, and they want to put a bigger body in there because generally they can take more of that beating.
Yeah, the run game is exactly why I feel like Gabe Davis makes sense. Because I agree with you. He's your fourth or your third wide receiver at best, or whatever, in terms of like however you want to think about target share or pass game participation, whatever. But to me, one of the big values of him is his ability to block. He's 6'2", which isn't any bigger than Bub Means, isn't any bigger than Kevin Austin Jr., Donovan Peoples-Jones. Yep, these guys. Cedric Wilson Jr. as well. Like these guys are all, in that kind of 6'2" range, everything like that. But he plays bigger than 6'2" when he's on. Because again, you can be as big as you want to be. If you don't have the big guy mentality, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? But you can be as small as you want to be. If you do have a big guy mentality, there's value to that, right? And so he has the ability to be able to do that. But at 225 and as a solid run blocker, that to me is one of the biggest reasons why he's worth getting a look at. He's not somebody you're going to try to put the game in his hands. He's not somebody that you're going to expect to be the number one guy or anything like that, like you said, but he gives you another option to go out there and be a solid run blocker and give you sort of that perimeter blocking game for your running back to get outside to do that kind of work. And I think that that's a huge value. 53.7% catch percentage over the course of his career. That's a little bit concerning, but Dylan, you mentioned Ted Ginn Jr. before, right? He was a guy that, you show up, you get a new quarterback, and then all of a sudden the passes are a little bit more friendly for you or whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden that ends up changing. So that's maybe like one kind of, red flag a little bit, but you're not paying $10 million for this dude to show up. You're signing him to what would effectively be a very affordable contract because of these are the way that the financials work out. And so I think that that's where a ton of value is for him. Somebody that could potentially end up coming in and contributing, but that will be able to help you in your run game, and you're signing him to come in and assist you. If the Saints were a team that were like, oh, we're one wide receiver away and we needed to get over the playoff hump and things like that, then like to me, Gabe Davis wouldn't be the guy. But for where they are in terms of their lifespan and what it is that they need, and adding variety to the wide receiver room and doing it on an affordable situation, that's where I think Gabe Davis makes sense.
Yeah, a young Gabe Davis. I mean, this is 3 or 4 years ago, but a young Gabe Davis had 550 yards and 6 touchdowns as the 4th or 5th option in a Bills offense. I feel like that would be an amazing addition to this team right now. Like even just that level of player. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's 26 for starters, so and he's working away back from a knee injury, so that's something that obviously he's going to have to check out physicals and stuff. And look, I'll say this too. Lance never apologized for bringing the X's and O's and all the nuances to the game, because none of us have actually taken an NFL snap.
Right.
So flex on him a little bit, right? You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Right? Well, not a professional NFL snap, Dylan. Maybe playground, backyard football, all that good stuff. But look. Also, Gabe Davis is somebody I floated out on the show weeks ago. Sorry, Keenan Allen. I know you're very, in the group chat.
Yeah, sorry,
we'll talk about it later. But it could
Can't
still happen
afford
with him, Amari Cooper.
Stop using my Netflix.
Oh man. But yes, Gabe Davis wouldn't cost a lot. And the thing is, around this time, Saints minicamp, they are going to bring in veterans for tryouts and stuff. Not saying that they do that with Gabe Davis, but we've seen that in years past. We saw that's how they got Lynn Bowden Jr. before. They've gotten certain receivers in that process. And so I would expect this week that they're going to bring in a lot of guys for some tryouts and such. And so just the fact that they're interested is interesting, right? For a team that's supposed to be the worst in the league, quote unquote, right? Or nobody wants to go to New Orleans. All the narratives, look, they got a rookie quarterback or a second-year quarterback, all this other stuff. But the fact that they've been now paired to Nick Chubb and Gabe Davis, pretty interesting in my opinion. But again, and this is the thing, and another certain person just got released. We may touch on the show, but Jair Alexander for the Packers. Again, anybody that gets released now, the Saints are going to be interested in them, right? Like fans are always like, oh, this guy can help us. This guy can help us. It's just that attrition type thing that, happens every time that somebody gets released. But look, for Gabe Davis, I think he could play exceptionally well, but who do you bump off? Like, I mean, you look at the current state. Is the Cedric Wilson Jr. in the equation? Is above means? Can he shine up above the rest of the competition? Donovan Peoples-Jones is somebody that I think is pretty intriguing. You look at Kevin Austin Jr., Mason Tipton might be a guy that's an odd man out. I mean, you look at that receiver room, stuff like that's probably going to happen. But for Gabe Davis, look, I think he's super talented. I think he's somebody that could help this offense. Again, start with the gritty stuff of blocking. I think the other receivers are willing, but I think Gabe Davis will have a certain edge to him in that run game like Lance was talking about. And so look, if it can work, great. But Pittsburgh's also in the running, and they got Aaron Rodgers. They need receivers, so I think Pittsburgh probably is a better destination for Gabe Davis right now.
Yeah,
I mean, we've talked about these younger guys, and like the Bub Means, and Mason Tipton, and I mean Gabe Davis isn't much older than them, and also has 5 years of experience. And I think that the 5 years of experience, being in the run game, playing in the playoffs, I think all of that is just more and more stuff to where I think that I'd rather take the chance on a Gabe Davis who might have some drop issues than rolling it out with, Mason Tipton. I mean, no shade on them, but I just think that that's the kind of variable that they could use in the wide receiver.
Yeah. Experience
Rugby
counts
balls.
for something, right? Like, right. Experience counts for something. I mean, we've seen this Saints team leaning on that. Like they went out and they got Colin Saunders, Super Bowl champion. They got Justin Reid, Super Bowl champion, Tyrann Mathieu, Super Bowl champion. Like there's value in getting guys that have played into the playoffs. It's value of getting guys that have Super Bowl experience, all these other things. So I think you're right. It's a good X factor. I think the big question is also going to be, when is he coming back from that meniscus injury? Ian Rappaport had reported after his visit with the Steelers that he wasn't quite there yet, but I think that's okay. Like they're about to go on a 3-day mini camp and then they go on a break for a month before they what we
month and a half
call
almost.
a break. They're not going on a break. They're grinding no matter what. But like then they go on, this organized team activity break, and then or off-season program break, and then they come back for training camp. So there's time, even if he's not ready until the middle of training camp, there's something there. But the name out there that I think I would absolutely run towards right now is the guy that John brought up, and that's Jair Alexander. Like if I'm going after anybody, that's the dude that I'm going after. But I don't think that signing Gabe Davis to a 1-year vet minimum contract precludes you from looking at other people either. Like you can look both ways. You can look two ways at the same time. You could Shaquille O'Neal it and be just fine in this league. And so it'll be all right. Like they will be able to find ways to add more of that talent that's out there.
And they got money.
They got money. They got money. So let's keep this conversation rolling about free agents. We'll touch into the Jair Alexander and some Nick Chubb coming up next. Mickey Loomis recently reached into his pockets and found out he might have Gabe Davis, Nick Chubb, or Jair Alexander money lying around. That could be you with today's sponsor, Monarch Money, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com/LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Jumping right back into it with some more free agency talk. Let's touch on it. Nick Chubb got signed, and he's off the market. But are they not happy with the running back room? Ross, let's start with you.
I think we're still waiting for him to officially sign with the
Texans.
With the Texans,
He's expected to sign. That's what the reports were yesterday.
So we'll see. Yeah, so we'll see how things pan out. But here's my opinion on the interest in Nick Chubb. I think the Saints are interested in Nick Chubb because Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb. And it's not very often that a guy like Nick Chubb is on the market. Right. I know like he's got to get, he's got to make sure he comes back from the injury okay and all these other things. But clearly like that's in an okay enough place if a team's willing to sign him or if a team's willing to have him in on a visit and everything like that. And that's part of what these visits are sometimes, to figure all that out, a la Gabe Davis with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so I think that it's less that they're not happy with their running back room and more that like just it's not very often that a guy like Nick Chubb is available. So you go after a guy like Nick Chubb, you know what I mean? And so I don't think it's a slight to guys like Kendre Miller and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and, Devin Neal, who they just added this offseason. But I think any team should be interested in making itself better. And when there's a player out there that can make that group better or that you feel would be a good addition to that group, you go out there and pursue that addition. And that's something we've seen the Saints do for a long time. Remember, they had two or three guys they were comfortable with starting at corner, and then Janoris Jenkins got released, and what'd they do? They went and got him. You know what I mean? And we've seen that at several other positions. And so I think this is just kind of still part of the mentality of the New Orleans Saints, is that when there's an opportunity to improve a roster, they're going to go out there and improve a roster. And I'd say most NFL teams think that way.
So you're telling me that Jair Alexander is going to be a Saint? That's what I got from that conversation.
I mean, look, they've already shown that they're interested in potentially adding more talent at the cornerback room. They did that visit with Asante Samuel Jr. last month. They're waiting.
Could still be a possibility.
Right, which could still be a possibility. Every team's kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with that July recheck on his surgery and everything like that. But now, like, if Jair Alexander is available and you can get him on a deal that allows you to be kind of covered for his injury history, his recent injury history, like that's always going to scare some teams and stuff like that. And so whether that's incentive based or whatever, like if you're able to get him on a deal like that, like that's a position they've already shown that they're interested in working out. And I think that the secondary has already been a pretty like underrated, strong position group for them. Then all of a sudden you add Jair Alexander to it. Like it's a strong position group as it is, but then it gets better with him. So I would absolutely be on that phone trying to get a meeting with his agents and everything, like him and Kool-Aid opposite one another. And then Alontae Taylor in the slot. Like I'd feel pretty good about that if I were a team.
Yeah. John, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, you look at the Texas running back room. Yes, they have Joe Mixon, but that to Damian Pierce is a good RB2, but it would elevate RB2 by getting somebody like Nick Chubb. So, I mean, Joe Mixon is a beast over there. He just did so many good things for Houston's offense. And so you give another weapon for CJ Stroud and all that stuff. I mean, they're not going to be upset at that. And so, look, again, I think the Saints running back room is one of those question marks, right? Is the fact that we know Alvin Kamara. We've talked on it on this show. Alvin Kamara, then what if with Kendre Miller? Can he stay healthy? Can he do all these things? Can he be a player that, last year, remember, he also had problems somewhat with the playbook. So that was another issue that hindered him from getting on the field. And so Clyde Edwards-Helaire showed some bounce. Don't forget about Velus Jones Jr., Devin Neal, Marcus Yarns, undrafted. Like, these are guys who aren't necessarily household names, but I think there is potential for them. And again, this further drives home the point of why there will be no Taysom Hill in the first couple of months. I mean, again, in some aspects, I believe he can return at some point. I just don't know when that might be. It might not be until November. And then if they're, 2-10, is there any reason to bring him back on the field? I don't know. You know what I mean? And so,
and what is he going to look like if he does return?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, it's a major injury. And so it's not saying he won't, but again, I think the interest there is something that you're always looking in the business of getting better in some aspects. And you also said in the Monarch thing that, how dare you not mention Kai Harley? You said Mickey Loomis, but it's Kai Harley. That's the financial genius guy. But anyways, I digress. And then, so again, that's interesting. But the Jair Alexander stuff, again, you're going to look in that aspect. I think this defense, 31st against the run last year. And of course, they were just not a good unit. You got to get better at a lot of positions. And if you can do that with a guy like Jair Alexander or Asante Samuel Jr., who has familiarity, obviously, Brandon Staley, and had some of his best seasons with Brandon Staley, you got to look into it. And if they don't get him, no big deal. But if you do get them, then I think it helps your team. I'm not going to tell you it's going to give them extra wins, but it certainly helps their outlook a little bit better than what it was previously.
Yeah.
So I just got so excited that we're like just over 60 days from seeing guys like Marcus Yarns taking snaps in a preseason game.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
We're almost there, man.
We're almost there. Lance, I want to ask you a little bit different of a question. We've talked a lot about the free agency stuff in this, and Ross has already said that signing one doesn't mean you can't sign the other. But if you could add another free agent to a room, either the wide receiver room, running back room, or a cornerback room, what do you think is the most pressing need?
Corner. I think that, having a veteran presence over there, a guy that's had some success, whether it be a Jair or a Asante Samuel Jr. type situation, I think that doesn't just upgrade that room or the secondary. I think that upgrades your entire defense. Having somebody that is a really good player out there. Obviously, Jair, we know more about him, right? Former Pro Bowl cornerback. And I believe Asante Samuel made it to a Pro Bowl one time as well, potentially. So like that, you're not just adding a guy, right? It's not just a depth signing. Yep. Now, I do need to say something ahead of that, or I guess that is a little bit more important than that, but it's also related, I guess, kind of indirectly to your question. At this point in the season, generally speaking, you're not signing saviors, right? Like this time of year, you're not signing a guy that's taking you to the Super Bowl. Sorry, Aaron Rodgers, but it's
no, you're not.
You're the makeup of your roster. Well, maybe I'm not. The makeup of your roster, from guy number one to guy 53, 54-ish is kind of penciled in, right? Like the top 35 plus or minus a few at this point, right? So you're not, oh my gosh, if we sign this one guy today at the end of minicamp who has not been signed all offseason, we're now Super Bowl contenders. I just don't see that. Even on a really, really good team, you're signing good veteran players, not just for depth purposes. You're signing these guys to create competition within position groups, right? it's and especially a position group that is full of younger players. You want a veteran presence in all of those rooms, not just to help these guys learn how to be pros. You want a veteran presence to help push these guys so that if they aren't who we thought that they were, maybe that veteran guy steps in and takes their spot. But if that veteran guy pushes these guys to become better players, now we've got a better product to put on the field. That, to me, is the reason why you sign veteran guys at this point and into training camp, right? Not because you think that these guys are going to come in and be all pro players. You sign these guys because they're going to make your team better. And it's not necessarily what everybody thinks. Oh, this guy's going to come in and he's going to take us to the Super Bowl. That might not be the case. It might be as simple as this guy's going to come in and the competition that he brings is going to make everybody, including him, better. That's just how
you're absolutely right. I mean, the Gabe Davis visit is a great example of that, right? Like, he's a guy that they would sign to bring in to serve a role, not to come in and save the team. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the other thing that's important to note too is that people that sign in June, July, August, they're not, well, let's say people that sign in June, July, they're not guaranteed a roster spot either. Like, just because they're signing at this point, right? Just because they're signing at this point doesn't mean that they walk into a roster spot. Like, they still have to, like you said, they still got to go out there and make the team.
Justin Simmons last year was a big example of that. I mean, everybody thought like, oh, Justin Simmons was the piece the Saints absolutely needed. And he chose the Falcons, and he ended up having a very underwhelming year. And now he's still not on the team and stuff. But, you know, not saying he chose poorly, but at the same time,
no, he chose poorly.
That's I was trying to be very nice, but yeah, you didn't choose right. You know, anyways, you could have had better outlook over here, but outlook at the Saints. But again, that's an example of he did end up starting for the Falcons, and it just didn't work out for him. And I don't know if that's because he got in late in the process. That's another thing. And I don't know, Lance, is getting in at training camp, if you miss several months of like OTAs and mini camp, all that stuff, really that bad of a deal for him? Okay.
Well, to me, in my experience, right, like my last season would have been 2015 with the Lions. Fortunately for me, I signed like right before OTAs started. So like I just missed a couple weeks of workouts, you know what I mean? So that was a pretty smooth transition. I was just out of football for a couple extra weeks. Now, fast forward to 2016, I was out the entire off season. And while at the time I thought it was good for the most part, like, oh, I get to spend more time with my family. I don't have to be off away doing workouts the same way essentially that I'm doing here at home. But by the time I signed with Atlanta, 9 or 10 days into training camp in that 2016 season, I was so far behind. And it was just as much mental as it was physical, because I was like, oh man, I'm trying to learn this playbook. And then, you know, I'm the off days, I'm meeting with the coaches literally the entire day just to try to get a grasp of, man, it's not like I'm going to be in the third or fourth huddle. Like, I'm going to be in the first huddle. Like, I need to know what these play calls are. So like playing catch up is hard, but the physical part to me was a little more evident because I'm smart. Like the playbook was hard, but it was like, okay, I'm going to get this. This isn't that big of a deal. Right. The physical, having not been in a huddle, having not caught a football from a real NFL quarterback since January, like that part was super tough. And, you know, I was going into year 12, so I would have been 33 years old. Like, it's not like I was some young kid who still had all the same energy that I had in my early 20s. So there is, and I do think it's positional as well, right? Like there could potentially be more of a ramp up process for a guy that plays offensive or defensive line where they're really just trying to work him in. I'm a receiver. I'm thrown right in the fire. Raheem Morris was the receiver coach at the time. And my very first practice, like, I'm in the huddle with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu. And I'm literally in the huddle like this. And Raheem Morris is standing right behind me in the huddles at practice. And the play call is Matt Ryan gives the play call. I know the position. I mean, I know the formation. Cool. I know where I have to line up. So as I'm running to the line of scrimmage, I'm looking back and Raheem was like, "Oh, you got this." And I was like, "All right, cool." And he's like, "Oh, cut your split down a little bit." So like, I literally have my own personal coach. And for me, a guy that prided myself in knowing what to do and being able to go to execute, that was a part of like, oh, man, this kind of sucks. But I'm sure everybody has their own experience, that the guys that have been through it, but that was my experience.
Yeah.
And then you add to that I was wearing that uniform in that city.
Right.
Like
right.
they had me in all the wrong number. Like it just, there was just so many things that didn't feel right about it. I was like, yeah, this is just not for me. I think I would rather not play football than play for these guys.
And that's all without the personal, real life human being stuff of you also have to learn where to go in the building, where to go in the city. You're adjusting to a new environment and everything like that. Like it doesn't stop. I imagine it didn't stop when you weren't practicing either. Like there was a whole other adjustment period.
No. I mean, and you're right. I mean, I had just worked out with the Chargers like 2 days before my workout for the Falcons, and I killed that workout. And I was like, there's no way I'm not getting signed. And at that time, I was building the house that I'm sitting in here in San Diego. The Chargers were obviously still here then. And I was like, this is perfect. And when I didn't get signed, I wouldn't say it was like an ego hit, but it was definitely something that I was like, that was perfect. Now, no situation is going to be as perfect as this one unless the Saints are willing to bring me back. And here's something that I haven't really said publicly. We were reaching out to the Saints immediately after the Falcons reached out, because I was like, please just call Mickey. I was talking to my agent. Call Mickey one more time. Tell him
I ain't going to Atlanta.
Tell him that the Falcons are trying to sign me, and like I'll come back for like below veteran minimum, like, you know, and he was like, you know, we're trying to, you know, get younger and blah 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 blah. I mean, the thing that a lot of GMs will tell guys, and one day when I'm a GM, I feel like I'm gonna have a different explanation as to why I'm not signing guys, but you know, it just it was one of these days we'll have to do story time, and I can tell you guys that, like the whole story of that process. But yeah, I mean, the human aspect for sure is it's real, man. And like when I say that it just didn't feel right, I feel like I'm really not doing justice to those real deep down issues that I really had. Like I kept playing it out. I did the workout, I killed the workout, and something in the back of my mind was like, I hope they don't want to sign me. Like that's just really that's how I felt. And once they did, I was just kind of like, all right, I'm here. Yeah, okay. Nobody else is blowing me up, so I got to do what I got to do. But I digress from that, I guess.
Wow.
Wow, that must have felt weird. But you know what doesn't feel weird? Saints OTAs. We're going to be talking about them coming up next. OTAs are done, at least from this, you know, the 3 sessions that the media got to watch. So we've got some eyes on the Saints, and now it's time to take a step back. What did we learn over these past couple of weeks? We're each going to give our biggest OTA takeaway, and take us away, Ross.
Yeah, I'll start with the quarterbacks, because I feel like that's where we should start. But I think the thing that I've learned, one of the biggest things that I've learned, is that the Saints quarterback competition is super exciting. Like regardless of who wins this job, who holds on to the job, right? Because who's the week 1 starter doesn't necessarily mean that they're the week 10 starters. There's a lot of things that can change over the course of time. But with these 2 young guys, and Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck, who are the 2 quarterbacks we got an opportunity to see, right? We got 4 reps from Hunter Deckers the final day in red zone. And so, you know, red zone is always a little bit more, you know, we talk about how it's always kind of a little juiced for the offense and 7-on-7, things like that, red zone, even so much more. But I think that when you look at these 2 guys, Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck, there's things that they're both good at. There's things that they're individually good at that the other one maybe isn't as strong at, all these other things. I think that you've seen a high ceiling so far with Tyler Shuck and his ability to make big plays. I think when it comes to Spencer Rattler, you've seen more consistent play. I thought Spencer Rattler was more of a standout in 2 of the 3 practices that we saw, but that doesn't go for the other 6 practices that we didn't see. So who really knows? But I think under any circumstance, leaving speculation behind, leaving like bias behind and all these other things. Oh, I like this quarterback, therefore I'm not allowed to like this quarterback kinds of attitudes. The fact of the matter is that both of these young guys are pretty exciting. And I think that the Saints are in for something very fun when it comes to selecting either one of these quarterbacks and seeing what they're able to do out on the field. It might not pan out. It might not work, whatever. But what they have done so far in terms of focusing this quarterback competition on those 2 players feels like so far it's been the right thing for them to do.
Yeah. John, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, imagine if they get 2 good quarterbacks out of this. I'm just keep saying that. And of course, it could all just blow up in their face. It could be fool's gold or something. I'd say in a different direction. And again, we've kind of touched on this, but the energy, the mood, this honeymoon phase right now with Kellen Moore right now, I just feel with the coaching staff and the player relations, I just feel like is going in the right direction as far as building a program. Now, will that mean they're going to win? No, not necessarily. But again, I think from a building a foundation structure, the players are responding extremely well to Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore is doing a lot of the really good things for this program. Again, I don't want to compare him predecessors or anything, but again, playing paintball with the team, having the team at the 18th Ward doing a community event where they're all not just players, but coaches too, or painting and doing all those things. I just like the direction Kellen Moore is taking the Saints in this program. And again, it may not pay off this year. It may not pay off day one, but I do feel like the energy, the mood in the locker room, the relief on the players, the fact that it is something different, it is something new, is a breath of fresh air. And again, we can always talk about it. Oh yeah, of course it's at the beginning of the year, but again, there is new leadership in the building and there is a lot of reason to be excited about that. And you can see the players' excitement about the defensive shift. You can see the offensive players' excitement about a new offense and new coaches and being taught different things. And so again, I think that energy and the foundational building blocks is going to go a long way, but I think that's got to be my biggest takeaway is the fact of where they're building out this program and where things are going is something completely different. It's unique, and it's something we haven't seen in years. And so I think that's something to be super excited about. I think it's only going to get better from here. And again, will it translate into wins? No, I'm not going to tell you that. But at least on the surface level, everybody's happy in that building. Everybody's really positive in that building, and it's showing out a lot. And I think it's going in the right direction. And that's, I think, what you want more than anything in this program.
Yeah.
I mean, with like the limited actual drills you get to watch, I feel like that was one of the biggest goals that we talked about heading into the OTAs was like, this has to be a different culture. This has to be a different team. This has to be a different energy than it has been. It can't be the keep doing what you're doing energy. That's my favorite quote. But I think that quote really just encapsulates what was wrong with everything from the past couple of years in the Saints. And it feels like that needed to change. And I feel like that from what we've seen early on, it does feel like a different building and a different attitude entirely. And I think that's the biggest win possible from OTAs.
Yeah. Look, I know you didn't call on me, but I'm going to jump in.
Well, you were next.
And Dylan said it. I mean, it's culture, right? Like you're creating, and I know that word is thrown out a whole lot in pro sports, but you have to create your culture, right? Like Kellen Moore can't come in and try to continue the Sean Payton, Dennis Allen, this is how we had success. Like Kellen had to come in and be Kellen Moore and institute whatever things that he needs to put in order to create the cultural dynamic that he thinks will allow us to have success. The team building activities, as far as like going and having fun, doing the paintball, the community service work. You want guys to have shared experiences that bring them closer together. We don't want a team full of independent contractors that literally come to work and then they go home and they do their own thing and they don't ever see or talk to each other. I know because I remember early on, I believe David Patton signed with us in 07. When he came, rest in peace, my brother. When he came to the Saints, one of the first things that he said to us in the receiver room was, when I was with the Patriots, now remember, he was with the Patriots and won 3 Super Bowls with them. He was like, we were together all the time. We hung out all the time. Guys genuinely loved to be around one another, and we took that to heart. And our receiver group, as a result, while we were decently close before that, we became closer and closer. And I believe Sean heard him say that as well. And like our position dinners weekly were like different. The side of the ball dinners, like the defensive dinners, like those guys were together every week. We were doing things together all the time. And that just creates a closer bond. And that bond, then I truly believe it helps you on the field. Like it allows for guys to, and I don't even know if it's a conscious thing, but it could be subconsciously guys like, I got that guy's back. I'm going to do this, and this extra to make sure that he's taken care of, and, and he's going to have my back the same. And it's really easy to go out there and play and put it all on the line for your guys if you genuinely love them. And I think that is a huge and underrated part of culture in modern sports today, because the times are so different, because there's so many other things going on that could attract guys' attention that don't have anything to do with football, that don't have anything to do with their teammates. And that's not to say that, teams can't be good if they aren't ultra close, but I do believe the teams that have the most amount of success and consistent success are the teams that are usually really, really close with one another. So I appreciate the fact that Kellen is coming in and doing the things that I think are necessary to create that culture of closeness and love. And that really will it's a building block, right? It's a foundational piece when you're trying to start anew. And I believe that that's finally taken course. Now we'll see as the off season, or I guess mini camp finishes and we get into the season, how much else changes. But I do think that, we're seeing a necessary change. And then as far as like, what do I think, like my biggest takeaway is that the team that we've seen through OTAs is an unfinished product, right? Like we haven't been able to see the full squad. We haven't been able to see what the lineups will look like with all of the players, not just in attendance, but all the players healthy. So I think the jury is still out as to what this team is going to look like and line up like in week 1. But fortunately for us, we've got plenty of time to get guys back. And then obviously this is a mandatory mini camp, so we should see the healthy guys, come this week.
To your point about the import. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to make one quick comment on the culture. Look at Washington, 4-13, 12-5, and that culture doesn't get changed unless you embrace it and try something different. And so, that was all I was going to say, is that Washington had a major culture shift, and they were in the bad because of past ownership and all that other stuff too.
Yeah. And I do want to say, just as someone who was in that program, close to the program while he was there, that has a lot to do with Jane Daniels. That has a lot to do. That guy. So
but ownership, coaching too. Yeah, absolutely. Jaden though, absolutely.
But it starts, I think a lot of it starts with the quarterback. And I feel like, again, one of my bigger takeaways is that I think that Rattler and Shuck have had the right attitude going into this season. And I think, what we've seen on and off the field, I think that this is just a positive sign overall. I think it's hard not to feel at least a little bit better about maybe not even the 2025 Saints, but the trajectory of New Orleans than you would have been a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. I don't think you should be expecting to look back on this point in time at the end of the 2025 season and go, oh, that's where it all started. But I do think there's a chance you look back on this point in time after the 2026, 2027 season and say, oh, that's where it all started. You know what I mean? Like, to me, I think to all of us, like, this is a longer build process, and it doesn't have to yield immediate success on the field in terms of win-loss. You just got to start showing incremental improvement. And so far, I think we're seeing some building blocks and foundational pieces that could lead to that.
Well, and I mean, just like Dylan said, I mean, like culture can change quickly. I mean, obviously we don't necessarily have a Jaden Daniels, but do we know that today?
Right.
Like we don't know that today.
Are you sure about that?
And, you're right. And look, I mean, I'm going to say probably not, but the jury's still out. But look, you go back to 2005, 2006 with this team. Right, I was on those teams, the 3-13 Katrina Saints to the number 2 seed 10-6 2006 Saints. Right, we played in the NFC Championship game. So and I don't say that to say that I think we're going to the NFC Championship this year, but I do I've seen it firsthand how quickly a culture can change with the change of a coaching staff. Like, because it happened, I was there, and it generally does turn into wins for you. I just don't know that with this current roster that it's going to turn from, last place in the division to number 2 seed in the NFC. I just think the league is too good these days, and in the NFC roster wise, I don't know that we're at the top of that list. So it's going to be hard to have that type of change, but I do think that the cultural thing can happen relatively in a short period of time.
Yeah. Well, coming up next, we're going to be talking about a player that is going to have a big role in at least the immediate change of the defense. All right, wrapping it up today.
Ted Day?
Wrapping it up today. Sorry, I was reading the comment. It was funny. Wrapping it up today, we are going to talk about Justin Reid. We're continuing our season previews, our overlooks for these players, and I think Justin Reid is one of the more intriguing ones. I think he was a really shocking signing at the time whenever it happened. I just was not expecting it, did not see it coming, and I think it was one that could end up playing a huge role, especially in this defense as a safety who can do it all, including, kick the ball a little bit. John, what are your hopes and wants for Justin Reid this season as the veteran big safety signing?
Yeah, look, I mean, he can do a lot of everything, first of all. And that's what I think I love most about his play is A, I mean, his play, B, leadership, but he has the right attitude, and I mean, he's embraced his culture. He's embraced everything. And of course, coming back home, obviously there's a certain thing to that, I guess, if you will. But the fact that he chose here over the Eagles, that's really nice to kind of flex a little bit. And you don't get many of those moments, but look, he can tackle too. And that's a big thing.
Keenan, are you listening?
That's a big area where the Saints have to get better. They got to get better at tackling, and Justin Reid is somebody that can help fix that. And not him single-handedly, but just having somebody that can tackle. I know it sounds simple. It's football 101. You got to tackle, but I don't know how many times we saw the Saints defense last year just missed tackles, missed opportunities, different things along that line. So bringing some balance there. Obviously, he has familiarity with Tyron a bit, and so I think that's going to help him out a lot. And I look forward to seeing that kind of come through a little as well. But again, am I going to tell you he's going to be this all-pro safety that's going to make the Pro Bowl or anything? No, I'm not going to tell you, but he does have, experience, obviously, Super Bowl experience, all that good stuff that you want. And so it can help this defense a lot. It can help Brandon Staley and lean on players that have leadership. And look, maybe Tyron's not here next year. Maybe DeMario's not here. Maybe Cam's not here. Justin Reid could be a guy that takes on that role, if you will. Not that I want to think about life after those three guys, but at the same time, I think somebody that can be in your program for a few years and still be able to help lead the next generation of players. I think that's also important to me, but I think he's going to play exceptionally well. I think he's going to have a very strong impact on this Saints team, both on and off the field.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I forget at times that I think that it could be interesting. He has a chance to really make a name for himself in New Orleans and be that next big stalwart in the secondary. He's only 28. Like he's still a young safety for as much experience and accolades he has. I think that this is a smaller signing, like maybe on the surface, than it actually could end up being for this defense. Ross,
yeah, I mean, we just talked a lot about culture, right? And he's a guy that is a big time culture guy,
Yes.
right? And he's got Super Bowl experience, right? He's got playoff experience. And he talked about it the other day when he was speaking with us in the locker room, where he talked about how he's been on bad teams, he's been on mediocre teams, and he's been on really good teams. And he understands the culture that got each of those teams to that place of being a bad team, a mediocre team, or a great team, everything like that. So you want those guys in your locker room, in your building, who have the ability to see like, oh, that's not the way we should be conducting ourselves, or whatever, whatever role it is that they're willing to take in that situation. And he's an excellent communicator, fantastic communicator on the field, off the field, in the locker room, all that. I think guys will quickly look up to him. And he can quickly establish himself as that leader, like you talked about, Dylan. And so I think that you add that with his ability on the field as a versatile piece, which makes him a perfect fit for what it is that Brandon Staley's going to want to do from a disguise standpoint. When I was speaking with Terry Joseph, the defensive pass game coordinator, one of the things that he talked about, which is what every NFL team wants to do on the defensive side of the football, is they want to make everything look the same from, before the snap. And one of the ways that you do that is by having versatile pieces like a Justin Reid that have the range to get deep, but also have the ability to play down in the box and be impactful there. And so his ability to do all those things, I think, also makes him a perfect fit, not just for what he does on the field, but what he'll be able to do as a cultural kind of beacon, if you will, when it comes to the off the field locker room side.
Yeah. Lance, what do you think about Justin Reid and the addition and what it means for this year and moving forward?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised as well that a veteran guy that has won Super Bowls would choose to play for this team at this time. I wasn't surprised that Justin Reid wanted to come back to Louisiana to play. Like, I wasn't surprised by that. But when you talk about being able to sign with the Super Bowl champion Eagles and then signing with the Saints, it would have had to have been a money issue, right? Like, I just in my experience, if I had the two to choose from, whether I'm going to go to Cleveland and sign with the Browns, or if I'm signing with the team that just won the Super Bowl, if the money's anywhere close, I'm going to the Super Bowl team. Like, that's just what I'm going to do. And the Eagles had a positional need at safety as well. So that as well, so kind of surprised me. So I'd be interested to see if it'd be worth even finding out if we could see what the Eagles offer, but which probably won't ever happen. But just like the other guys have said, man, the positional versatility, the veteran presence, the winner. He's a winner, right? Like he knows how to win. He knows what it takes to go through the long haul of a season, a Super Bowl season, right? That's even longer than all the other teams are going to play, except for one other team. If you have a bunch of guys that you can move around and can fulfill multiple roles, that is going to make your entire team better, not just your defense better, right? Like, I feel like Tyron has kind of been that guy the last couple of years that they've moved around based on need. If you've got two of those guys, not only do you have more opportunity in case, or more guys ready in case somebody gets hurt, but you can also kind of confuse the offenses a little bit because they don't know, they can't just tell by where certain guys lined up what defense you're playing because of tendencies anymore, right? Like, the tendency thing kind of goes out the window because these multiple guys can do multiple things based on whatever defense Brandon Staley's calling. A guy that like John said can tackle, a guy that can play down in the box, that can play single high coverage. He's got ball skills. He's a playmaker, and I think defenses need playmakers just as much as offenses need playmakers, because this team is going to have to turn the ball over I do think having young quarterbacks or a young quarterback play for us this season, we're going to need as many short fields as possible. And we're going to need as many extra possessions as this defense can provide for our offense as possible. It just makes Kellen Moore's job and the offense's job that much easier if we're afforded more of those opportunities. And I believe that he's one of those guys that can be a playmaking, game-changing, ball-hawking defender on this defense. Now, I think a lot of that's going to be predicated on what we do up front, the type of pressure that we're going to be able to get, and how we stop the run on early downs. But again, if we're able to do those things, then I think he's going to be a big part of the reason why this defense is much improved from last season.
Yep.
Okay.
It's not me. I didn't do it.
I got a quick number. I just got a quick number. First 7 weeks of the season last year, it was a total of 14 takeaways for the Saints. Excuse me, first 9 weeks, 14 takeaways for the Saints. Every game, for all the games after that, 8 games after that, 3 takeaways for this team. So just to Lance's point, like, one of the reasons why you want to see this team get back on to taking the football away is going to be to correct that trend that we saw last year and how much that they struggled with that with a young quarterback at the helm.
Yeah, and I was just going to add in that, you talked about Justin Reid and Tyrann Mathieu, them having 2 guys who can kind of do everything. And then you add in like Jonas Sanker, who also has made his money doing everything. And I think that there's potential in this defense for like Alontae Taylor to be kind of one of those guys. So, and I think that we've seen a lot of versatility. We've talked like Quincy Riley would fit either on inside or outside. Like if you talk about all of the permutations you can have with the defense that they have right now, this has the potential to be a, somewhat young, but also a mix of some experience and a mix of different skill sets to be a really fun defense and secondary right off the jump. And I think that is this personnel group mixed with the Brandon Staley defense is another thing that I think has been fun from OTAs. And I think that the ceiling has somewhat raised for me for this defense. I think this is a group that if they get the scheme down, I think it's a talented enough group to win some games in the NFL. At least the defense is out of the ball.
And then wait until they add Jair Alexander. No, I'm just kidding. You could imagine like why that would be exciting for the team in terms of building. Because you're talking about probably a multi-year deal in that situation. So you could imagine why that would be an exciting thing. Like I imagine Brandon Staley's like, somebody get on the damn phone right now. You know what I mean? Like
Brandon Staley's like looking up like
Mickey Lewis's office right now. Like,
come on,
I know Jair's agent's phone number. You talk.
Open up a table at Drago's right now.
So
I think there's so much potential.
Yeah, I think Justin Reid also gives the team very much what it was that they intended to get with the pairing of Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May that they didn't get.
Yes,
and so you know what I mean.
Great
and so
call.
John and I know a little bit about all that, but like they didn't get what they wanted with Marcus May, and I think that was evident.
They didn't get a lot of things with Marcus May,
right? Yeah, I mean, you got two seasons in 17 games, so he played a full season over the course of 2, or that. So like they just simply didn't get what they wanted. But I think Justin Reid gives them a little bit more of that flexibility, that versatility, that of allows them to diversify their defense a little bit, diversify them bonds. So,
oh man.
But yeah, I mean, I think overall, Justin Reid was the first domino in a bunch of different moves that I think has made this team more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very excited about what he can bring, and the fact that it is a 3-year deal. Like, and there's going to be some restructuring and stuff like that, but I feel like he's here for the next couple of years, and I think that that's a great starting point for a defense. Mm-hmm. You can never have too many talented safeties in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I also think that, we've talked a lot about culture today and some of the signings or potential signings. Mm-hmm. I think that in an off season that has kind of been underwhelming as far as some of the things that have happened, I think there's reason to be excited, right? Like I don't think that the overall outlook as far as wins and losses is super exciting, but I do think that the transition from the old to the new, some of the new younger pieces, some of the interest that has been publicly reported. I mean, there is reason to be excited about this football team, and I think it's going to take time and patience. But I do see finally that there is some light at the end of the tunnel as far as, okay, we're out with the old. Oh, I was almost out with my mic. Out with the old
mic drop.
Yeah, seriously, out with the old and onto the new. And I think that should have been the goal overall for this team going into this offseason.
Bingo.
Yeah. And, you know, culture doesn't really start with Mickey Loomis or like Tyler Shuck or like anybody on the field. Culture starts with you at home listening to Saint Squad.
That's
Thank you
right.
for listening to today's episode. Check out me, Ross, John, and Lance on our socials for the latest. And join us right back here on Thursday when we talk. Maybe the Saints have a new player. Probably not, but let's talk
Minicamp.
Minicamp. Let's talk about some more football. But until then, make sure you make Locked On NFL your second listen of the day.